Eyo Youtube, how you doing? I'm Stijn and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be giving you a Q4 update on Gilat Satellite Networks, or ticker symbol Gilt. We talked about the stock before on the 1st of February, and since then it has been an absolute roller coaster. In this video we'll try to find out if Gilt is still a buy under the current circumstances, and especially after their fourth quarter results. But first I'll talk about the 5G revolution that is bound to happen. After this I'll talk about what Gilat Satellite Networks does, and I'll try to explain why I believe Gilat is such a great company. Thirdly, we'll dive into Ark Invest holdings, specifically to see if they plan to add more Gilat to their ETFs. Following this up, we'll talk about the fourth quarter results and some interesting contracts Gilat has silently been adding. And lastly, I'll give my updated price predictions and buy targets for the stock. Let's go! 5G promises to accelerate cellular data transfer speeds from around 100 megabits to around 10 gigabits per second and beyond. This is a 100x theoretical increase in transfer speeds, but in the real world 5G is about 20 times faster than 4G. Besides delivering this insane increase in download speeds, 5G could be responsible for a latency of 1 millisecond or less. Absolutely bonkers, since this is fiber optic speeds. This all sounds really nerdy and techy, but what does it mean in the real world? Well, we're all connecting more and more devices to the internet. Smart this, smart that, they all need a connection. But what happens if we connect this many devices to our 4G networks? Well, there's only a specific number of frequencies available. And if you connect too many devices, signals will start to interfere with each other. 5G comes in at the 30 to 300 GHz range, which is rarely used for anything else than 5G. Therefore, at peak usage has a way lower amount of interference compared to 4G. This is especially useful and needed for autonomous driving, smart cities/homes, artificial intelligence, etc, etc, etc. Therefore, with the capability to connect a basically unlimited amount of devices comes a great amount of use cases. So many use cases, in fact, that we're barely scratching the surface of all the possibilities that are available to us. Only time can tell what 5G truly will bring, but we can all agree that's a much needed step to further our digital age as a species. Okay, so it's obvious 5G is really useful and is totally coming in the upcoming decades. But how can we, as an investor, make best use of this trend? Well, as a true value investor, I like to invest in a company that is really solid and a great value proposition in the 5G space. And as a true value investor, I think I found such a stock, namely Gilat Satellite Networks. And here's why. Gilat is active in four main sectors: the defense sector, the broadband, so cable sector, mobility sector, and here you need to think of airplanes, cruise ships, trains, etc. But for me, most important, they're also active in the mobile cellular backhaul. Cellular backhaul is basically the backbone of a network. Your device, let's say a mobile phone, connects to a tower, which in turn connects to a satellite terminal, which then connects to a satellite and a satellite hub, where it's connected with the rest of the world. And this connection is called the backhaul of a network. The importance of 5G creates a great business opportunity in the backhaul of said 5G. And I believe Gilat is well positioned to become the dominant force in this sector. This I believe because they are already the dominant player in the 4G backhaul sector at a massive 80% market share. And they clearly have the tech to become a big player in 5G as well. And to prove their competitiveness, just look at all the new contracts they were able to make. We'll talk more about this extensive list at the fourth quarter results part of this video. Now onto Ark Invest. Those of you that watched my first video on Gilat back on the 1st of February will know that Ark Israeli ETF held about 2.4% of their portfolio in Gilat, which were 368,835 shares back then. Fast forward to today, February the 18th, and Ark Invest holds almost twice as much Gilat shares at 634,899 shares, or about 3% of their portfolio. Some of you really look up to Ark Invest, and I think this portfolio movement really shows the continued trust of Ark Invest in Gilat and legitimizes this value opportunity even more. Moreover, Ark Invest is planning to start an actively traded ETF focused on space exploration and space-focused companies. If Ark Invest does really start the space ETF, known as Ark X, adding Gilat to this portfolio is a no-brainer. I therefore think that the upward pressure on the stock could gain a lot of traction once Ark X is up and running. But as of now, it's still unclear when this ETF will finally form and what it will contain. Therefore, I myself am not betting on it, but it could be a great headwind for the company that is Gilat. Now to the fourth quarter results. Gilat's Q4 results were a mixed bag for me. I was silently hoping for a surprise profit since they were adding contracts like crazy in the fourth quarter. But they still managed to grow quite some, and they really look like they're getting over the pandemic quite nicely. Revenue from the fourth quarter managed to come in at $42.6 million, which is a substantial increase from the $37.3 million from the third quarter, but still quite lackluster compared to 2019 when they got $78 million in revenue. They managed to get a GAAP, or General Accepted Accounting Practices, operating income of $62.7 million, which would be awesome. But about $65 million of this was related to the settlement with Comtech, so not real profits. Therefore, non-GAAP, or in practice, they lost about $1.6 million in Q4 2020. Is this bad? Well, no, not really. They're really busy adding a lot of contracts to their business, of which most didn't come into fruition this quarter yet. Besides, the $1.6 million loss is quite sustainable, especially if they at least manage to grow their revenue, which they seem to be growing just fine. Now I'd like to talk about some contracts Gilat has silently been adding, therefore increasing their revenue in the long run. One of the most interesting contracts that came in is the contract with Korpak. Here, Gilat is awarded a multi-million-dollar contract to provide mission-critical telecom systems for 29 of Peru's airports. This award follows Gilat's successful execution of large government projects and well-positioned Gilat for additional large deals in Peru. This contract again really legitimizes the tech Gilat has, and once executed opens the door to so many other business ventures for Gilat. Besides this contract, Gilat managed to add 8 other multi-million-dollar contracts in the fourth quarter of 2020 alone. 9 contracts, all multi-million-dollar deals, added together, set to make a big dent in their revenue, which was only $42 million per quarter as of right now. The logical continuation of this is that the revenue is set to boom the upcoming quarters and years. All in all, the fourth quarter of 2020 was not as spicy as I hoped it would turn out for Gilat, but is still quite healthy and certainly a big step in the right direction. I underestimated how large of a time delay these contracts would have in my first video, but it doesn't really change the bullish case I have for Gilat in the long run. And here's why. As promised, price predictions. If we take Gilat's pre-COVID EPS, or earnings per share, and grow this EPS at a compound interest rate of 20% a year for 10 years, we get a future EPS of around $2.23, meaning Gilat could reasonably reach an earnings per share of $2.23 in 2031. If we take a slightly conservative PE of 50, which they have received multiple times in the last decade, that would bring us up to a future value of around $110 per share. And if we then discount this future value back at around 15% a year, this results in a fair price to pay for Gilat of around $28. And as a value investor, I like to take an even more conservative approach and subtract another 50% as a margin of safety. Therefore, I get a heavy buy target of around $14, which was calculated with conservative numbers as well as the 15% margin of safety. And I get a light buy target under the $28 mark, which would be around fair value to pay for this company. If you manage to buy in at $14, you could see a return of 619%, or about a 7x return from today's prices. Wow, this is a great value proposition in my opinion. And if you decide to buy around the $20 mark, you could still 4.5x your money. But please keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Therefore, to summarize this video, I think Gilat is a great value stock that can be used to leverage the 5G revolution. Gilat has a lot going on for them, like their advanced tech and all their new contracts, but is for now still unprofitable. My buy targets are as said under $14 for a heavy buy and under $28 for light buying activities. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video on Gilat. And if you did, please give it a like and maybe even subscribe. Comment down below what you want me to talk about next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.